Hello, everybody. It is Thursday in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My name is Adam Bittner, assistant sports editor for multimedia at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, joined for our weekly chat by Jason Mackey, our Post-Gazette sports columnist. Going to be a little bit abbreviated today, Jason, because you and I will be back at the North Shore Tavern, Mike's Beer Bar, getting our steak on the stone and then digging into the NFL draft on our NFL draft live stream. So we're not going to dwell too much on the Steelers in this video. We're going to talk mostly about them during the live stream itself. But Jason, I did want to get your, I don't know if I want to get your prediction or your wish list, whatever you prefer for the first round tonight with the Steelers currently, as we're recording this, picking at number 21 overall.
Yeah, they're the same thing, Adam. I think it makes all the sense in the world to take a defensive lineman. I understand the noise about a quarterback. It's a quarterback. Of course, you're going to want to see that position get rectified. It's something Art Rooney II said after the season. But I just feel so strongly about the defensive line. Derrick Harmon from Oregon would be my pick. They need defensive line depth. We saw what happened late in the season. Teams running all over them. They need a successor to Cam Hayward. Don't overthink this pick. If Derrick Harmon's off the board, I'm also okay with Walter Nolen from Ole Miss. Would absolutely be fine there. Even Kenneth Grant from Michigan. Also good with that. I'd like to see them not reach for a running back. If the backup plan is a wide receiver and you're going to build out that room because you're going to theoretically lose George Pickens after 2025, I'm good with that. But my preference, and I think what makes the most sense based on what you read, what you hear around the Steelers, defensive line is a slam dunk.
Yeah, I can see that, and that's kind of the page that I've been on this whole time. I am somewhat intrigued by Sheduer Sanders falling to 21. I wouldn't trade up to get him, but if he's on the board, I think that's.
Do you think he's going to fall, Adam? I go back and forth on this. I don't either.
I think there are teams that are going to take their chances on him. Just to, and I think a lot of teams like to just start the clock on the quarterback. Bring one in. If he doesn't work out, then you're that much closer to finding the next guy. I think the Steelers have been looking more toward 2026 in that conversation. We'll see whether it works out for them. But I do think there's going to be a team that says, yeah, let's start the clock. And if it's not Sheduer, then we can move on. And maybe the Steelers end up with Sheduer the back way and then they end up, trading for him or something like that. So we'll see how that all plays out. Jason, we're going to get into the Penguins mostly in this first segment. Before we do, just want to thank our sponsor. It's Edgar Snyder & Associates. Law firms come and go, but what law firm has been here in Western Pennsylvania fighting for injury victims for more than 40 years? It's Edgar Snyder & Associates. What firm has a staff of over 130 people who live and work here? It's Edgar Snyder & Associates. Law firms come and go, but Edgar Snyder & Associates is a name you can always trust. So remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. If you've been hurt in an accident, call them at 1-800-94-EDGAR or visit edgarsnyder.com. They're available 24/7. Okay, Jason, the Penguins and Kyle Dubas, the general manager, wrapped up the season this week with some comments about, where they go from here. You had some thoughts about Kyle Dubas when he laid out his roadmap and more or less said they're not looking at next year necessarily as the year that they're going to arrive. Maybe they get lucky. Maybe they bounce into the back end of the playoffs. But that is not the goal, more or less, is what he said. It's to continue to build a sustainable cup contending team, probably with an eye toward 2026, 27, and later. You felt that there was a lack of urgency. You wrote in the Post-Gazette that you would have liked to see more urgency from Kyle Dubas, especially, with Evgeni Malkin, Kris, Letang entering the ends of their contracts. This might be the last lap Sidney Crosby gets with these guys he's been with for so long, even if Sidney Crosby stays with the Penguins significantly longer than those two guys. I guess explain your thoughts on that, and then maybe we can dig into a little more.
Yeah, happy to. I understand what Kyle's saying. And I actually, to this point, have liked and respected the process and what he's done going about getting assets and tradable picks and that sort of thing. All of that makes sense to me. And there's also something in here where to do something, the Penguins are going to have to be able to trade Tristan Jarry, Erik Karlsson, get out from under that money. But Adam, the cap's going up. The Penguins right now are projected to have $24 million in cap space. If they can do something, attach a couple of those assets to Jarry and or Karlsson, you're going to free up some additional money there. That's $12 million plus. If you buy out Ryan Graves, you're going to get a couple more million there. I mean, to me, the onus is on Dubas to get Sidney Crosby another chance with Evgeni Malkin and Kris Letang. not to kick the can further down the road. And with that much cap space, and the Penguins Dubas specified on Monday, he's not been told by FSG that they're limited on player spending in any way. So they're going to spend to the cap, at least based on what they've said publicly. You can take that money and spend it in free agency and improve areas of this team that have lacked. And honestly, they have some guys coming up from the minor leagues that are intriguing. Goaltender Joel Blomqvist and Sergei Murashov are two young goaltenders that had pretty good years in the American Hockey League. If one of those guys can pan out, maybe you spend a little bit on more of a reliable goaltender. The left side of their defense was not good enough this past season. They probably bring Matt Grzelcyk back because of what he did on the power play, but you probably need another left side defenseman. Okay, you get another top six wing who can play with Gino. I don't think Evgeni Malkin is done. I don't think he's had the necessary support. You're getting Rutger McGroarty, Ville Koivunen, guys who came up late in the season. They were pretty good. You need some of these young guys to pan out. The Penguins have a couple more. I'm not saying they're a Stanley Cup contender, but what I am saying is if you spend money and you say, look, 25, 26 is more of a target for us than 26, 27, you can get back in. You can give them a chance. You can maybe surprise some people. I don't like the idea of almost punting on 25, 26 when you've got Malkin, when you've got Letang. Like, these guys have done so much for this city. You know Sid's going to want to see it. Our Matt Vensel used the term proof of concept, and I think it's a really good one. Like, if you're Sid, don't you want to see some sort of progress? Next year, if they don't make it, that'll be 4 years in a row. All of a sudden, Sid's going to go into year 5 of missing the playoffs, and then you basically have to do it because then his contract's up, and what's he going to do at that point? I wouldn't blame Sid for wanting something else. He wants to win, and you can't have too many years with him out of the playoffs. I can't imagine any of those three would take kindly to the fact that they've already played their last playoff game together.
Well, let me play devil's advocate there, Jason, because I look at the last contracts all of these guys signed as the Penguins doing right by them. They're entering their late 30s. I was in favor of those contracts. I'm glad those guys are still here. I'm glad I get to see their last years in the NHL rather than in a different uniform. But that being said, when we're talking about doing right by them, I feel like they've already done that. And I feel like, especially with the production you're getting from Letang and Malkin, that being under contract is doing right by them and not necessarily mortgaging the future, which you've done so many times, to give them one more shot.
Yeah, maybe I should phrase that differently. Like, doing right by the collective, it's almost more doing right by Sid. Like, with Sid,
but I would throw Sid in that group, to be honest with you, Jason.
I know, but Sid has a choice to make, and if you want to retain him, you have to show him that you're willing to win. You have to show him something that he wants to hear. I mean, Sid doesn't want to coast through this thing and just say goodbye to Malkin and Letang and not make the playoffs. Like, I agree with you. It was the right move to sign those guys. I wouldn't extend them. You know, Malkin's going to probably go over to Russia after next year, and that's the right move. The Penguins shouldn't offer him another contract. But before he leaves, should they kick the can again, or should they try to be a little – again, I'm not saying sell the farm to go after next season. I'm not. I'm just saying you have the money that you have, spend it. That's it, and try to get more. Like, I don't understand. And again, this is why I opened with maybe Kyle Dubas was just sort of playing for leverage or something like that. I don't understand continuing to have Erik Karlsson and Tristan Jarry on your team. They have not done anything over the past couple of years. If you can get out from under those contracts, to me, it is worth attaching that pick, whatever you would lose in asset form, to get that money, free up a little bit more money, and spend it in a different way, because there are players out there who can help the Penguins. And yeah, it's a little bit of spending themselves out of trouble, but it's also spending themselves on players who over time have shown to be worth it.
Well, let's dig into Karlsson and Jarry. I guess I'll start with the goalies first. I guess my counter would be you keep him because you'd rather burn him up while Murashov and Blomqvist are developing. We saw Blomqvist earlier this year. He wasn't ready. I think you said that at the time. So, would it be nice to see him up here? Sure. But if they don't feel that the goalie situation is going to be resolved just on a development perspective, is there wisdom to keeping Tristan Jarry around? Because otherwise you're going to sell him for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay selling him for pennies on the dollar. Okay. It's a win to me to get the contract off the books. And this is tied to Murashov, even Philip Larson, Joel Blomqvist. I would like to have somebody in there as a number one who's got more experience and probably a different mentality than Tristan Jarry. Tristan Jarry's a nice kid, but what does he want in the postseason? What can he share with young guys about preparation mentality that you really want them to absorb? I'd even look at maybe like a veteran Russian goaltender, if Murashov is your guy, to kind of mentor him and take him under his wing. I don't think next year is a situation where those guys are going to play a whole bunch of games, Adam. But I do think they're going to have to be an important part of this team. So I understand the idea of running Tristan Jarry's wheels off. I do. But I think they can get better at that position in the short term by spending those dollars differently. Again, the key factor here is being able to get out from under Jarry's contract. If there's no interest, then you're stuck with it. And that is entirely possible based on how he played. It was an up and down disjointed season. But I just, man, I don't see the upside of keeping Tristan Jarry here. Like, your devil's advocate argument is basically we're going to run Tristan Jarry into the ground or use him as a placeholder. Like, if you can get better, I would like them to.
Placeholder is not the word I would use. It's depth and giving you options. If one of these guys comes up here and struggles, then you're not.
And then Tristan Jarry can struggle. They're so
correct. Yes, I mean, if you're already at the point where these guys are not ready, then you have a somewhat competent goaltender under contract. You have the ability to kind of pick your spots with these young guys, like you're saying. If they're not going to play a ton of games, who is going to play the ton of games? Who is that person going to be? Maybe it is a Russian goalie, like you say, but I think the argument partly would be you've already the albatross is already there, and do you just ride it out with an eye toward 2026, 27? And your argument's no, and I totally get that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Penguins have a lot of things that they need to reconstitute differently. And honestly, I'd be fine if they had to run it back with Jarry, but if they could get out from under Karlsson, if they had to run it back with Jarry and they were prioritizing 25, 26 a little bit more in terms of spending and the type of players they acquired, I could live with that, because I do think Tristan Jarry would be a better goaltender with a better team around him. The Penguins were very much deficient defensively. We've been over that. I even thought it was interesting. Matt Wenzel did a story late in the season about how Tristan Jarry has sort of changed his game and said without saying that the Penguins asked him to play a type of goaltender that he just wasn't, like more of a technical stop-start guy, when Jarry's been always free-flowing and a little bit more, I don't want to say creative, but less technical in his style. You saw late in the season the results did improve. So maybe he can recapture that. Maybe the Penguins learned a lesson about allowing Tristan Jarry to play goaltender the best way he knows how. You're going to live with some of the lumps. So there's some ways to work around it, believe me. But mine is just the overarching idea that I don't want to just blanket wait until 26, 27, because I don't think they have to.
What does a successful Erik Karlsson trade look like to you? Is it a pure salary dump, or are you just happy to get whatever cap relief you can? Are you hoping to acquire anything back? Do you have any hope of that? How are you looking at that situation?
A successful Erik Karlsson trade, Adam, is one that's executed. It's like the old newspaper page designer thing. The best page is a done page. The best trade is a done trade. Karlsson does not play a type of game that fits with what the Penguins are trying to do. He's a good player, and he can help teams. We saw it in the Four Nations face-off playing for Team Sweden. It was almost a different version of Erik Karlsson. I think part of the reason is they're better able to cover up for some of his flaws or shortcomings. Every time Erik Karlsson has sort of an ill-fated pinch, takes a chance that he shouldn't, loses his marbles for a couple seconds in the defensive zone, the Penguins just don't have the safety net to operate with a player like that. And I think if the Penguins are going to keep Mike Sullivan, and I think they should, if they're going to keep a large part of their roster, and I think they probably will, they need to have their team function differently. They need to be better, more responsible, take fewer chances defensively, and offensively and defensively. Erik Karlsson does not fit into that. He can help a team's offense. We've seen that 5-on-5 more so than the power play. It does not work. And if there's a time to trade him, it's now. He's got a full no movement clause. I do think Karlsson would welcome a chance to play for more of a contender, a team that better fits his style. I don't think it's worked here. I mean, think about what they've won since he's come to Pittsburgh. Really nothing. It was supposed to be a big, impactful trade. It has not been. I would like to see them play a tamped down, more conservative style, and Karlsson does not fit in that. He's also getting up there, and he still has some offensive production. I would want to capitalize on that before he gets old, over the hill, even more untradeable than I worry he already might be.
Jason, I'll get you out here on the Penguins discussion on this. Kyle Dubas talked about wanting to sign 23, 24-year-olds to long contracts this summer. And that sounds great to me. If you could get a whole bunch of solid 23, 24-year-olds in NHL free agency, can get 3 or 4 guys like that, who is going to argue with that? My question for you, Jason, is how many of those guys are available? How many can you reasonably get? and he, I think, spoke a little specifically as well about not wanting guys who are 27, 28, 29, going into their 30s and not signing them to those long-term deals. But in my experience, Jason, those are the guys you get in free agency.
Yeah, I mean, look, what Kyle Dubas said sounds good, and that's why I kind of chuckled when you said it. Like, that's, the perfect world. That's like saying, I want to get a guy to come up here and score 30 goals on a league minimum contract. You can say it. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. And so that's the way they're kind of looking at this. Like, if the right trade comes about, if they can get some guys with term for relatively cheap, if they can go poach an RFA with an offer sheet, something like that, that makes sense. The problem is that doesn't happen a lot. Those guys aren't readily available. It's going to be even tougher with the cap going up, like I said earlier, because teams are going to have more latitude to sign their own players. They're not going to be up against it the way they might have been last year with the flat cap. Teams are going to have more money to spend. I don't think a lot of those players are going to be available. Adam, think about it. If you're a young player with years ahead of you and you're productive, why is a team going to let that guy get away? That just doesn't make any sense. I mean, I would love to have a bunch of young guys up here, even if you're able to extend them where maybe another team isn't. I just don't see that scenario. It's going to be a really tight needle to thread. Now, I think there's some validity to what Kyle's saying. Like, if they're going to execute a trade, they want to execute a trade for somebody who's going to be around, not somebody who's in his early 30s and on an expiring deal, something like that. Like, yes, that much is true. I just don't think, to your point, there are a whole bunch of guys skating around at 23 years old who are going to add a whole bunch and then be around for 6 more years on top of that.
Yeah, there's a reason that they
can acquire.
Yeah, there's a reason that they would be available to the Penguins. And that doesn't mean that they can't come in here and make a difference and be positive things, but I don't think you're going to find, your next 40-goal scorer that way unless you get really lucky. So, all right, Jason, we're going to get into some Pirates talk on the other side of this break. Andrew McCutchen, his place in the lineup, his place in this team's future. Maybe get into a little bit of the lineup construction and things like that. So check that out over on our Pirates YouTube channel if you're watching on video. If you're on audio, we're all going to be on the same show. So just stay tuned and we will see you on the other side.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.